The day before, my daughter-in-law Dana had crossed a line by embarrassing me right in my living room with the entire family present. At 68, widowed for several years now, I'd turned into nothing more than a walking wallet for my son Ryan and his spouse. Whatever desire struck them, impulse buys, indulgences, pointless splurges, they dipped into my nest egg without a second thought. But during that afternoon gathering, as I poured coffee for Dana's visiting friends in my own house, she casually dropped the bomb that shattered our dynamic for good. That elderly lady's sole purpose is footing our tabs. Ryan didn't stand up for me. No, he cracked up like it was the punchline of the century. There I was, gripping the coffee pot, frozen as they mocked me amid the furniture I'd picked out myself. My grip shook, not from hurt, but from an icy fury building deep inside, something entirely new to me. In that instant, the truth hit hard. I'd been fooling myself for too long. To them, I held no role as parent or relative. I was simply an ambulatory checking account. Over a decade, I'd bailed them out financially time and again. After Ryan got laid off, I covered his $800 rent for 8 full months, straight from my retirement check, while he barely bothered hunting for employment. When Dana craved a wardrobe overhaul to project a polished image, $3,000 vanished via my credit line. And that Hawaii getaway they claimed as a well-earned break from their tough routine. It cost another $5,000 from my reserves. Invitations to join. Never. I was plenty useful for bankrolling their escapes, though. "It's meant to be intimate, Mom," Ryan would brush off whenever I suggested glimpsing the waves. "You get it, don't you?" Fool that I was for so many years, I did get it. I shelled out silently, bit my tongue as they savored the luxuries my funds provided. 3 months back marked the breaking point when Dana set her sights on a fresh vehicle. "Ours is wearing out, Georgia," she cooed in that honeyed tone reserved for big asks. Plus, with a baby on the way, safety matters. The $15,000 up front, that equaled 2 years' worth of my careful hoarding. Yet I handed it over like clockwork, for the family's sake, or so I told myself. But the previous day, once those spiteful remarks sank in and I watched Ryan chuckle at my expense, a shift locked into place within me, irreversible. Sleep evaded me that evening, not due to grief, but a searing realization. Around 3 a.m., I rose, fired up my laptop, and started the overdue actions. I revoked every auxiliary card linked to my accounts. All 5 that they'd treated like personal perks. Next, I sealed the joint emergency fund, where I'd funneled monthly deposits for crises that turned out to be lavish meals and high-end outfits. Finally, I updated every banking password and yanked their access from the recurring payments. By 6 a.m., with it all squared away, I brewed a cup and settled into my go-to chair. Peace washed over me, genuine and long absent. I anticipated the incoming frenzy. Ryan on the line, frantic and shamed, probing for answers, and I was primed to deliver. Precisely at 9:15 a.m., as I sipped my morning brew in the kitchen, his call lit up the display. I let it go to voicemail twice more, relishing a surge of control untouched in ages. When I answered at last, his tone bordered on unhinged. "Mom, every card's bouncing. Dana's mom and I are stuck at the restaurant for lunch, and we can't cover it. Folks are snickering at us." Panic laced his words, echoing the dread he'd inflicted on me. The twist was pure poetic justice. They'd picked Crestview Grill, town's priciest spot, to wow Dana's mother, the very venue I'd funded for their outings over the years, always sidelined myself. Now, amid the elite crowd they yearned to dazzle, they faced the bill for a $200 meal with empty pockets and growing stares from the server. "Morning, Ryan," I said evenly, my composure startling even to myself. "Those cards are cut off because I've chosen to stop bankrolling your choices." "What? Have you lost it? We're out here in front of everyone, Dana's mom included. How do I spin that my mother's just abandoned me like this? This is absurd. What's truly absurd, my boy, is catching you chuckling yesterday when your spouse claimed I was nothing but a checkbook for your expenses. What's absurd is dawning on me that for a full decade, I've been viewed as a cash machine rather than your mom." A heavy quiet stretched across the line. In the distance, I picked up murmurs, likely Dana and her mom puzzling over the unfolding drama. The server was no doubt hovering for the bill, while fellow patrons might have begun sensing the uncomfortable vibe. Mom, not here. Not like this. We can discuss it afterward, but could you just turn the cards back on? Only for today, I swear. I interrupted him sharply. Enough with the vows, Ryan. No more. Only for today. For 10 years, I've endured those identical assurances. For 10 years, I've served as your quick fix for every issue. Yet yesterday, a harsh truth sank in. You hold no regard for me. You place no worth on me. And you certainly don't cherish me as deeply as I cherished you. That's a lie. We do love you naturally. Dana was merely teasing. You understand her style. I know her style perfectly, Ryan, and I know yours just as well. That's precisely why I chose this path. I heard his breaths coming in ragged bursts. I pictured the restaurant scene growing ever more strained with every second. His mother-in-law had surely spotted the trouble. That fancy gold card he relied on for showmanship wasn't functioning. Mom, come on, we can't linger like this. What should we do? Scrub plates. Alert the cops. This is mortifying. Now you grasp the sting I've carried for years, I shot back. The key difference. You're 35 now and ought to handle your own messes. Are you ill? Everything all right with you? This doesn't sound like the mom I know. You've never acted so heartless. Heartless. That term struck me hard like a sharp blow. Was I heartless after decades of giving up my own joys, skimping on myself, all to shower them with whatever they desired, after toiling right up to 65 to secure a solid legacy for them, after facing solitary holidays every Christmas as they jetted off funded by my cash gifts? Heartless was mocking me yesterday, I stated with an icy edge I never realized I had. Heartless was ignoring me for years, save for moments when you craved funds. Heartless was reducing me to feeling like my sole worth as a parent and individual boiled down to my savings. Mom, Dana never intended it that way. Dana voiced her real thoughts, and you backed her up. You two spelled out my role in your world crystal clear. Background noises swelled, Dana probing about the commotion, her mom muttering something indistinct but clearly irritated. The server must have delivered the tab by then, standing by with that artificial calm they muster when sensing an issue. Listen, Mom, I see you're angry, but this approach isn't right. Let's meet up and chat properly like grown-ups. Yet right now I require your aid. One final favor, then we'll make real shifts. One final favor. I let out a chuckle, but it rang hollow, laced with resentment. Ever count how often that line has crossed my ears? Tally up the final bailouts I've covered in the last 10 years. But Mom, no, Ryan, not anymore. This round, you'll need to devise a different fix. You've got employment, you've got buddies, you've got family by marriage. Sort it. How do I break it to Dana's mom that my very own parent ditched us mid-meal? How will I show my face to folks in our circle, words bound to spread? And just like that, the raw reality emerged. He fretted not over mending our bond. He pondered not their mistreatment of me. His sole concern was his facade, his standing, others' opinions, same as ever. That's on you to manage, son. For years I fretted over your reputation, your ease, your joy. Now it's my turn to focus on my own. You won't go through with it. You're my mom, precisely. I'm your mom, not your staff. I'm your mom, not your private vault. I'm your mom, not your endless credit line. And as your mom, I should have instilled in you long ago the skill to fend for yourself. Another, deeper hush fell. This one carried his panic right through the call. He was likely running through options in his head, weighing who to reach out to, plotting an escape that spared his dignity. Mom, I beg you. Dana's in tears. Her mom wants to know what sort of clan we're from. The server has checked on us thrice already, asking if we're fine. Show some pity, please. Pity? Yet another term that shook me. Where was their pity when I burned the midnight oil juggling their bills alongside mine? Where was their empathy when I skipped fresh outfits to fund their fleeting desires? Pity builds over time, Ryan, and you both squandered it yesterday. I ended the call. My hands shook a bit, but not from dread or sorrow. They quivered from a rush of excitement, from a surge of strength I'd never felt in years had passed like that. For the first time in ages, I'd prioritized myself. For the first time in ages, I'd turned down their demands. Over the following half hour, my phone kept buzzing nonstop. It started with Ryan calling back. Next came Dana, followed by an unfamiliar number that I figured was Dana's mom. Each ignored ring boosted my resolve, reinforcing that this was the correct path. I refilled my mug with coffee and settled onto the back deck, savoring the quiet I'd craved for so long. But the tranquility was short-lived. Right at 11:00 a.m., the familiar rumble of Ryan's vehicle echoed as it rolled up my drive, the same one I'd chipped in to buy, naturally. 2 car doors banged closed, and quick steps rushed toward the entrance. The pounding began right away, forceful and relentless. "Mom, let us in. We have to discuss this." Ryan's tone had shifted. It carried urgency, yet edged with hostility. "I know you're inside. Your car's right there." I stayed put. I lounged on the rear patio, out of sight from the front, observing the birds flitting to the feeder I'd set up the previous year. It struck me as amusing how life's little joys gained fresh significance once you claimed the mental space to appreciate them. Georgia. Dana's call pierced the air now, biting and commanding. "We see you're home. Quit behaving immaturely and step out to confront us. Confront them. Like I was the guilty party. Like I owed apologies after enduring years of monetary drain and heartfelt wounds. The sheer ridiculousness of it nearly drew a chuckle from me. The rapping grew fiercer. I sensed they were kicking at it too, beyond mere hands. My sturdy oak front door, the one my departed husband had fitted with such tenderness, was getting hammered like it led to some dive joint. "This is absurd," Dana yelled. "You embarrassed us in front of the whole group. Ryan's mother-in-law covered our meal. A 70-year-old lady dug into her wallet because her daughter-in-law's gone off the rails." Oh, so that's how it went down. Dana's mom stepped in to bail them out. I imagined the chaos, Ryan fidgeting nervously while fumbling to justify his useless cards, Dana spinning lame stories until the elder woman swooped in to settle the bill. The mortification had to sting deeply. "Mom, come on." Ryan's words trembled, close to sobbing. "Folks are gossiping already. The entire diner gawked at us. A few whipped out their phones. This'll spread across social platforms fast." Social platforms? Naturally, that topped their worries. Not the pain they'd inflicted on their mom, not admitting they'd overstepped. They fretted solely over appearances, status in the flashy crowds where they flaunted the extravagance I'd bankrolled. The thuds paused briefly, replaced by heated murmurs of debate. They must have been plotting their follow-up move. I understood Dana's tricks inside out. She packed a toolkit of guilt trips, and Ryan had picked up plenty from her through the years. Georgia. Dana's pitch flipped entirely. It turned gentle, coaxing even. "I get that you're angry, and you deserve to feel that way. Perhaps my words from yesterday came off harshly, but you realize I wasn't serious. I was merely bantering with the girls. You know us, ladies. We chatter freely when we're hanging out, without much filter." It was captivating, witnessing her pivot so swiftly. From the raging figure who'd been hollering and battering my door, she'd morphed into the empathetic in-law guilty of a mere slip-up in talk. "Mom," Ryan echoed the softer vibe now. "We get that we wounded you. Dana filled me in on yesterday's mess. And yeah, your frustration is valid, but canceling the cards won't resolve it. It only complicates life for all involved." For all involved, excluding me, obviously. For their ease, their habits, my inner peace still didn't factor into their math. "Please, Mom, let's sort this out. We can adjust our ways." Ryan's voice cracked a bit. "But I need those cards active by today. Payments are piling up. The auto coverage expires tomorrow. Plus, Dana's got medical visits lined up this week. We can't get stranded without funds suddenly. Without funds, as though it belonged to them, as if I should handle their coverage, health checkups, grown-up costs. Right then, it hit me sharply. They genuinely blurred the line between my earnings and theirs. To them, my nest egg was communal property, not the fruit of a lifetime's labor and hardship from someone who'd already given plenty. Georgia, reconsider your actions. Dana shifted tactics once more. Her words now rang with worry, almost parental. What'll others say if word gets out you ditched your son? How will it look at services? What about the relatives' reactions? The Cache Church, family. It never varied with her, leveraging my standing, my connections, my public persona to tug at my feelings, as though my value as an individual hinged on outsiders' views, as if my self-respect mattered less than the judgments of folks who had no clue how they treated me behind closed doors. "Listen, Mom," Ryan said, shifting to a graver, more grown-up voice. "I get that you wish we'd adjust a few habits. We could discuss limits, ways to handle the household budget more wisely, but not like this. This feels like emotional coercion. Emotional coercion." The phrase reverberated in my mind like a sharp sting. Me, the manipulator. After decades of quiet extortion, of guilt-tripping me whenever I paused before handing over cash, of exploiting my parental affection to drain my savings. The deflection was blatant enough to nearly draw a bitter chuckle from me. The rapping at the door resumed, though slower now, less forceful. They were grasping that the aggressive approach wasn't paying off. I caught sounds of them stepping back from the entrance, likely circling the property to peer for signs of me via a pane. "Georgia," Dana bellowed from what seemed like the area near my side pane. "We glimpsed your silhouette. We know you're inside. Quit skulking away like a scaredy cat, scaredy cat." That was the authentic Donna surfacing, the version that surfaced once the gentle ploys fell flat. The lady who dubbed me that outdated hag the previous day, who'd twisted my kindness into fodder for ridicule, who'd conditioned my boy to regard me as a mere cash dispenser rather than a human being. I rose from my seat and approached the window she'd hollered from at an unhurried pace. I parted the drapes just sufficiently for her to spot me, and our gazes locked across the pane. Her face shifted instantly from rage to solace, then to that phony grin I recognized all too well. "There you are," she burst out like she'd located a missing youngster. "Come now, unlock the door so we can chat as relatives should." I held her stare steadily for an extended beat, a peculiar serenity washing over me. Then deliberately, I drew the drapes shut once more. Her irritated yelp followed, along with fresh thumps against the glass, yet this time I stood firm. I returned to my rear deck and settled in anew. My cell buzzed right away, but I muted it. For the first time in ages, my residence felt genuinely mine. The yells and thuds persisted another 60 minutes, fading in vigor bit by bit. From my outdoor lounge, I picked up snippets of their irritated exchanges, their frantic schemes to sway my resolve. Dana floated the idea of summoning a lock expert to jimmy the entry, but Ryan pointed out that counted as unlawful intrusion. Even amid their panic, they shied from actual legal risks. At last, I heard vehicle panels clap and the motor pull off. Still, I sensed this saga had miles to go. I understood Dana intimately. She was doubtless scheming her follow-up tactic already. Something craftier, more heartfelt. I wasn't off base. By 3 p.m., my device lit up with unfamiliar callers. Initially, it was Dana's mom, her tone courteous yet insistent. "Georgia, sweetheart, I believe there's a mix-up. Dana filled me in on the incident, and I'm confident we can sort it as rational grown-ups." I disconnected without a word. Next came my sibling Elaine, residing out of state, clearly fed a doctored account of the affair. "Georgia," Ryan reached out to me in distress. "He claims you're behaving oddly and abandoned them at a diner. Everything all right? Under the weather?" "I'm doing splendidly, Elaine," I responded. "More thriving than in ages, actually. But I don't get it. Ryan mentioned you axed all their cards abruptly. That isn't the Georgia I'm familiar with. You've invariably been lavish with kin. Perhaps that was the issue. I noted I might have been overly lavish for far too many years. Yet Georgia, they're blood. Dana claims you're retaliating over a harmless quip. You must be able to gather and hash it out. A harmless quip. It was astounding how swiftly Dana had reframed the narrative in mere hours. What was once a vicious embarrassment amid company had morphed into a lighthearted jest I'd overreacted to due to excessive tenderness. Elaine, have you ever sensed you're just a cash machine to your offspring? I posed bluntly. Never. Why bring it up? Because that's precisely my role for Ryan and Dana, and the day prior, it hit me fully. Georgia, you're overblowing it. Folks routinely aid their young, that's standard. Is it standard to cover your grown son's housing costs for years? Is it standard to fund their getaways while you linger solo? Is it standard for them to jeer at you for your open-handedness? Elaine fell silent briefly. Perhaps they've exploited your kindness somewhat, but severing it all cold turkey strikes me as extreme. You realize what's extreme, Elaine. Toiling till 65 to build a solid legacy for your boy, merely to discover he's already squandering it, while I was still breathing. Following that talk, I chose to disconnect the landline. I switched my mobile to flight mode. I craved quiet to sort through my swirling emotions and figure out my future moves. That night, as I fixed a meal just for me, the first in months free from the dread of incoming pleas for cash, I grasped a key truth. No shame washed over me. All my life I'd been conditioned to feel ashamed whenever I failed to fulfill others' demands, particularly my relatives. Yet now, that usual remorse was absent. In its place came a sensation I'd long forgotten. Sharp mental focus. It felt like emerging from a thick haze of feelings into crisp visibility. Choices from the past decade raced through my thoughts like scenes from a film, revealing habits I'd previously ignored. The pattern repeated endlessly. Ryan or Dana would come to me with a short-term money crunch. I'd push back at first. They'd ramp up the guilt trip. Just this time, we're in a bind. What about appearances? I'd cave. They'd fix their urgent issue. Then, weeks on, another crisis would surface. There was no solid payback strategy, no true recognition of what I'd given up, and absolutely no offer to let me partake in the perks of my own kindness. I funded their getaways but got left behind. I bankrolled their upscale meals, yet dined solo in my kitchen. I handled their doctor bills, but nobody checked on my well-being. I rose and headed to my office, home to all my money records. The moment had arrived to crunch the actual figures and grasp the full extent of what I'd shelled out for them over time. I grabbed statements from the prior 5 years and began adding it up. The total hit hard. $86,000. $86,000 over 5 years. That overlooked earlier periods without such meticulous tracking. It exceeded half my retirement fund, surpassing what countless folks make in 2 years on the job. Yet the deepest sting wasn't the sum itself. It was understanding that for those $86,000, I'd gotten scorn, apathy, and the sense of being a duty, not a gift. As I scanned the details, something ignited fury in me, making me shake. They'd tapped one of my cards for high-end video subscriptions, costly fitness clubs, and periodicals I'd never heard of. Tiny recurring fees that piled into hundreds annually, funds slipping from my balance to cover indulgences I'd never savored. That evening, I reached another pivotal choice. I retrieved my will from the drawer and examined it closely. I'd prepared it 5 years back when I thought I was safeguarding a caring, thankful household's tomorrow. Ryan stood as the only heir to it all. The property, the nest eggs, the portfolios, everything. But viewing it now, my perspective had shifted. Why hand over my whole legacy to a person who'd already drained more than half during my lifetime? Why grant a legacy to someone who'd viewed me as an ATM, not a parent? I resolved to contact my attorney the following day for a meeting. Major revisions to my legacy arrangements were overdue. If Ryan saw me as a lender, he'd settle for the returns, not the core amount. I retired to sleep that night with an odd yet freeing sensation. For the first time in ages, my choices centered purely on my own health. For the first time in ages, I didn't lie restless over other grown-ups' cash woes. I rested more soundly than I had in months. Come morning, I stirred with a vigor absent for years. It was Friday, and after a long stretch, my agenda avoided fixing anyone else's messes. Top priority, ring my lawyer. Next, visit the bank for further adjustments, and perhaps, at last, treat myself to something pleasant with funds I'd typically squander on others' caprices. I reconnected the landline during breakfast prep. Sure enough, 14 voicemails awaited. I played them over my coffee, and everyone validated my choice. First up, Dana, voice quivering. Georgia, it's Dana. I get you're angry, but reconsider your actions. Ryan barely slept. He's beside himself with concern for you. He says he's never witnessed you this way. Ring us, please. Second Ryan, voice frantic. Mom, we need to chat. I hit the bank today and they said you'd shut down the emergency fund account. Why? That was meant for us both. It was striking how he kept claiming my funds as shared. That account had never truly served us equally. It was my own funds that I'd put away for what they claimed were urgent needs, but those always ended up funding trips, lavish outfits, or fancy dining spots. The third message came from Elaine once more. Georgia, Ryan reached out to me again. He mentioned you've shut down a savings account too. Are you certain about your choices? Isn't this a bit extreme? The subsequent notes stuck to that routine. Feigned worry, doubting my sanity, and pleas masked as sibling guidance. Yet the 11th one grabbed my focus. It originated from an unfamiliar phone number, though the speaker's tone rang a bell. Mrs. Whitlock, this is Oscar, the spouse of my relative Dana. Listen, we're not close acquaintances, but Dana urged me to get in touch. She's deeply troubled, claiming your behavior has turned odd. Speaking as a guy, I believe ladies often overthink matters unnecessarily. Why not simply pardon and move on? Kinship matters above all. Kinship matters above all. How handy that outlook is for upholding a setup that suits their interests. I pondered whether Oscar would so readily pardon and move on if somebody mocked him before his relatives while draining his savings. Right at 9 paws on the dot, I dialed the legal office handling my testament. The receptionist informed me Mr. Coleman had an opening and could meet that very afternoon at 2. Ideal. Next, I contacted the bank to schedule a session with the branch head to examine every account and introduce extra safeguards. I also aimed to ensure Ryan couldn't view any details on my monetary matters. As I prepared to head out, the front door chimed. Briefly, I figured it might be Ryan and Dana returning, but peering through the spy hole revealed my neighbor Lucy on the steps. Lucy, a 62-year-old widow of 2 years, and I would swap occasional words across the yard barrier. With mild intrigue, I led her inside. Lucy had never dropped by officially before. Morning, Georgia, she greeted with a kind grin. I hope I'm not intruding, but there was quite a racket and yelling next door yesterday. I just wanted to check if you're fine. I ushered her in and poured some coffee. It felt invigorating to host someone who wasn't scheming for cash or tugging at my feelings. Are things okay? So she inquired, her worry authentic. I noticed your boy and his spouse lingering for ages, hollering and pounding on the entrance. I nearly summoned the authorities. I shared the full tale with her, not the private bits, but sufficient to grasp the circumstances. Lucy absorbed it all quietly, nodding now and then with signs of empathy. Georgia, she remarked once I'd wrapped up, I need to admit something. Over the years, I've observed their treatment of you during visits. I've spotted them pulling up in fresh vehicles, clad in pricey attire, chatting on cutting-edge mobiles. All the while, you've stuck with that decade-old ride and bargain outlets. Her statement struck home, offering outside validation for what I'd long suppressed within. Outsiders could spot the plain truth I'd resisted facing, But the part that shocked me deepest, Lucy went on, was never witnessing them lift a finger for you. No assistance with your shopping bags, no repairs around your home, no casual drop-ins without demands. Does it show that much? I wondered, blending embarrassment with ease. To an onlooker, absolutely, though I get why it escaped you. Motherhood means holding faith in your kids' finest qualities. Lucy lingered another hour, and our talk proved the rawest, most freeing exchange in ages. She recounted her dealings with grown offspring who leaned on her to fix their woes, and how widowhood taught her to draw lines. What aided me greatest, she noted departing, coming to terms that stellar parenting isn't about self-sacrifice. You can cherish your offspring sans forfeiting your self-respect. Those sentiments echoed through my thoughts en route to the bank. In the executive space, we scrutinized my ledgers and enacted fresh protections. I updated every passcode, enabled dual verification, and confirmed sole access to fiscal data rested with me. Mrs. Whitlock, the executive noted while finalizing, might I inquire about these sharp shifts? Any particular threats to your safety? Put it this way. I've come to see my gravest monetary vulnerability resides right in my family circle, I answered. The executive acknowledged with a knowing tilt. Happens more often than you'd guess, madam. Plenty of seniors face exploitation from kin financially. Smart move safeguarding your interests. Post-bank, I treated myself to a solo meal at a quaint bistro I'd long-eyed but seldom indulged in. I ordered the priciest item on the menu, along with a glass of wine and a sweet treat to finish. The check came to $45, far below what Ryan and Dana typically dropped on just one set of drinks during their evenings out. While relishing my meal, a key insight struck me. It had been ages since I'd savored food without that nagging worry over the expense, the amount I'd have to reserve for Ryan's latest crisis, or if I could justify this modest treat for myself. For the first time in so long, I was dining with genuine hunger and delight. My meeting with Mr. Coleman, the attorney, proved enlightening beyond my expectations. As I described the circumstances and my wish to update my will, he displayed zero astonishment. Actually, he mentioned that scenarios like mine occurred far more often than I'd guessed. Mrs. Whitlock, he noted while scanning my existing will, we prepared this paperwork 5 years back. Back then, you left your full estate to your son, Ryan. Are you certain about these major alterations? Absolutely certain, I responded. In the 5 years since, I've witnessed my son's real nature. He's proven he doesn't cherish my support, and honestly, he's already blown through over half his future inheritance even before I'm gone. The attorney jotted down details as I outlined the $86,000 I'd recorded, excluding earlier periods. His brows lifted a bit at the sum. I get where you're coming from, he acknowledged. What sort of modifications do you have in mind? I'd like to split my estate, part to charities that genuinely aid those in hardship, not impulsive grown-ups. Another share for my sister Elaine, who's always stood on her own and never sought a dime from me. And for Ryan, I hesitated. For Ryan, merely sufficient to indicate I'm not cutting him off spitefully, but not so much that he can keep avoiding gainful employment. Considering set percentages, yes, 50% to charity, 30% to my sister, and 20% to Ryan, but only if he proves a full year of total financial self-reliance. The attorney gave a subtle grin. That final stipulation is clever and fully enforceable. It's basically encouraging accountability. I departed the firm with profound contentment. After years, I'd finally shaped choices for my future that aligned with my true principles, free from dread or lingering parental remorse. Upon returning home, a strange vehicle sat in the driveway. An older lady, clad in refined attire, waited on the porch. It turned out to be Dana's mother, Claudia. "Georgia," she greeted with a strained grin as I pulled up. "Glad you're back. We ought to chat woman to woman." Out of intrigue more than courtesy, I ushered her inside. I was eager to learn her take on the story. "Listen, dear," Claudia started after we settled in. "I realized there was a mix-up yesterday with you and the young ones. Dana shared the whole tale with me, and honestly, I believe you're blowing it out of proportion." "Blowing it out of proportion," I echoed. "Sure. Dana mentioned she said something you took the wrong way, and now you've resorted to harsh steps, revoking your own son's credit cards. That strikes me as an over-the-top response to a harmless quip among ladies. A harmless quip among ladies." It was striking how the tale had shifted. What began as a blameless jest now pinned blame on me for lacking wit. "Claudia," I stated evenly, "do you hand your daughter endless credit cards?" "No." "But do you cover her rent as an adult?" "No, but that's not the same." "Do you fund her getaways while you remain by yourself?" Claudia fidgeted in her seat. "Georgia, families manage money in their own ways." "Precisely, and I'm choosing a new path for mine going forward. But consider Dana and Ryan. They're still youthful. They're shaping their lives. They require backing." "They're 35 and 32 years old. By that point, I'd already parented a child, held jobs for years, and built savings for retirement without parental aid." Things were tougher back then. Things have changed, yes. Now there's greater access to jobs, superior schooling, easier credit from banks, no excuse for two capable adults to fend for themselves. Claudia switched tactics. "Georgia, Dana's heartbroken. She sobbed through the night. She views you like a surrogate mom and can't fathom your abrupt dismissal." A surrogate mom who's just useful for footing bills, per her words. That was playful banter. Women gripe about in-laws all the time. It's typical. Griping behind closed doors is one matter, Claudia. Embarrassing someone before company is another. The discussion dragged on for 30 more minutes, with Claudia deploying every persuasive ploy imaginable. Guilt. Imagine your son's hurt feelings. Fear. You'll wind up isolated. Shame. What will others say? Even subtle warnings. Dana has connections in social services. Ultimately, when she saw that her strategies weren't paying off, she opted for a straightforward tactic. "Georgia, let me be straightforward with you. Donna and Ryan are thinking about getting legal assistance. There are methods to deem someone mentally unfit if they display unstable conduct regarding their money matters. There it lay, the genuine danger lurking beneath all the emotional coercion. If I didn't comply willingly, they intended to seize authority over my finances through compulsion." "Claudia," I responded, rising to my feet, "I advise you to speak with a competent attorney before attempting that. I just left a meeting with my own, and he confirmed that safeguarding one's finances from familial exploitation shows sound judgment, not the contrary." Her face shifted right away. She knew she'd revealed her hand prematurely. "I didn't intend—" She started to retreat. "Oh, yes, you did mean precisely that," I cut in. "And with your real motives now clear, I believe our discussion has concluded." I escorted her to the exit without a word. As she departed, she added, "Georgia, I truly hope you'll think it over. A family feud helps no one." "No feud exists, Claudia. Just a woman who's at last learned to prioritize her own worth." Once she was gone, I settled into my living room chair and pondered her words. They weren't just ramping up the emotional pressure. They were even eyeing court actions to reclaim power over my funds. That night, I reached out to Mr. Coleman and described Claudia's warning. He calmed my nerves, noting that labeling someone mentally unfit demands robust medical proof and a thorough judicial procedure. Managing one's finances prudently isn't proof of incapacity. Still, he cautioned, I urge you to log everything. Record talks if you can. Save evidence of their warnings, and maybe pursue a preemptive mental health assessment to prove your clarity. For the first time since this ordeal started, a touch of apprehension crept in that evening. But it wasn't worry over any misstep on my part. It was dread about the lengths they'd go to reclaim my wealth. Yet something fiercer than dread surged within me too. Resolve. Claudia's ultimatum robbed me of sleep that night, but not out of terror. A chilling fury built steadily with each moment. How could they even contemplate branding me unfit for shielding my own assets? It represented the peak of deceit. When gentle coaxing fails to yield results, attempt to rob the individual of their autonomy over their own existence. The following day, a Saturday, I heeded Mr. Coleman's guidance. Initially, I visited a discreet medical center for a full psychological assessment. The physician, a skilled lady in her 50s, heard my account of events. Mrs. Whitlock, she stated following 2 hours of examinations and discussions, allow me to state this plainly. You exhibit remarkable mental sharpness. Spotting abusive cycles, establishing firm limits, and securing your economic assets all indicate a fully capable intellect. Actually, I'd argue you're behaving more logically today than during the times you tolerated the monetary mistreatment. She provided me with a formal document verifying my total mental fitness, complete with date and official seal. It served as my safeguard against potential future disputes in court. Back at home, I spotted Lucy tending to her garden. She approached the boundary dividing our yards, her features etched with concern. Georgia, an elderly lady, stopped by yesterday inquiring about you. She asked if you'd been behaving oddly of late. I assured her you appeared more content and at ease than I'd seen in ages. I shared details of Claudia's drop-in and her subtle menace. Lucy's anger mounted as she absorbed it. "That's outrageous," she burst out. "Attempting to label you unfit just because you're unwilling to hand over your funds, it's the silliest notion I've encountered. What irks me deepest," I confessed, "is their conviction that my money belongs to them by right. They view it not as my legacy, but as their early payout on an inheritance." "You know what you ought to do," Lucy remarked with a sly grin. "You should step out and savor your independence. When did you last pursue an activity purely for your own joy?" She hit the mark. I devoted countless years to meeting others' expectations and requests, losing touch with the simple delight of acting on personal whims. "A 5-day voyage sets sail next Wednesday," Lucy went on. "I planned to join my sibling, but she backed out owing to medical concerns. Care to accompany me?" The suggestion excited me instantly. How long since I'd journeyed for fun, since I'd rested in unfamiliar quarters, dined out without tallying expenses, or just unwound free from the perpetual stress of Ryan's ensuing money woes. "I'd be delighted," I answered promptly. That afternoon, we reserved the cruise. It cost $2,500 each for a 5-day all-inclusive trip. This amounted to just a small portion of the money I'd shelled out for Ryan and Dana's previous getaway. Yet on this occasion, it was purely for my personal pleasure. Come Sunday morning, as I pondered what to include in my cruise luggage, the doorbell chimed. Ryan stood there by himself this time. He appeared utterly worn out, shadowy rings beneath his eyes, attire all rumpled, face etched with desperation. "Mom," he uttered in a voice that cracked, "can we please discuss this alone? No Dana involved, no yelling, just us." I allowed him inside, though I maintained a guarded emotional barrier. I'd grown skilled at spotting manipulation by then. "Mom, I'm at my wit's end," he started. "The auto policy comes due Monday, and I lack the funds to cover it. Without renewal, driving becomes illegal for me, and sans vehicle, reaching my job is impossible." "How much for the coverage?" I inquired. $250. "And your earnings last month?" $3,500. But, we face costs," he stammered. "The lease, groceries, bills, what other outlays do you have?" He paused briefly. "Mom, can't you see? Existence costs a fortune." "Existence gets pricey when your habits exceed your budget," I countered. "Answer me this, son. How much went to dining out last month?" "I'm not sure. Perhaps." "What about subscriptions to video platforms, fitness clubs, meal delivery services?" "That's not the same, Mom. Those count as essentials." Video subscriptions as essentials. In today's era, sure, isolation isn't an option. That highlighted the core issue. Ryan truly viewed extravagances as must-haves, and he saw true essentials as others' burdens to bear. "Ryan," I stated evenly, "you're 35 now. You've got a degree from college. You hold down employment. Why struggle with a mere $250 insurance payment? Because nothing remains after all the other outgoings. Then trim those other outgoings. It isn't simple. You can't slash spending so abruptly. And why is that? Why? Frustration showed plainly on his face. Because we must uphold our way of life, a way you can't sustain, yet you've consistently bailed us out. There it was, the raw reality. He sought not fleeting aid, but what he deemed his entitlement. In his view, I formed an ongoing fixture in his budget, not merely a parent offering sporadic aid. Ryan, let me pose a question, and I expect truth, I continued. Over these past 10 years, have you ever drafted a proper budget and stuck to your income alone? He went quiet. Have you pondered relocating to more affordable housing? More silence. Have you ever chosen to reduce spending voluntarily to avoid hitting me up for cash? Mom, those queries aren't right. Unright. It's unjust to question a 35-year-old grown-up on whether they've attempted financial self-reliance. You fail to grasp the strain we endure. Dana holds certain standards. Her circle maintains a particular standard. We can't appear destitute. And when have you factored in my standards or my own monetary strains? For the first exchange, Ryan fell utterly mute. His gaze revealed he was grappling with an idea he'd overlooked entirely. Mom, he murmured at last, tone gentler. I hadn't realized. I never knew you felt burdened. Truly. You never questioned how I funded your habits while subsisting on simple fare like beans and rice. You never pondered why I skipped new outfits for myself yet always covered your crises. Tears streamed down his face. I assumed. I figured you enjoyed aiding us. I saw it as your expression of affection. And it was, Ryan. But you transformed my affection into a duty. You made my giving into a demand. And ultimately, you rendered my efforts a target for ridicule. What Dana uttered. Well, that was the tipping point, though the vessel had been brimming for years. Ryan wept quietly for a few minutes. When he resumed speaking, his words carried a newfound depth, more grown-up. How can I mend this? Begin by covering your own auto insurance. He lingered in my sitting room for nearly an hour post-discussion. We exchanged few further words, but a shift was evident in his demeanor. After years, he finally appeared to be genuinely contemplating his actions rather than scheming for personal gain. As he departed, he added, Mom, I'll locate funds for the insurance, and we'll dive deep into our spending habits. I harbored some doubt, yet it rang like an initial move toward adulthood. Monday morning, while preparing for my Wednesday cruise departure, a surprising phone call arrived. Dana was on the line, her manner worlds apart from recent exchanges. Georgia, she spoke steadily, I realize tensions have run high. Might we grab coffee, sans Ryan, sans theatrics, just us two? Curiosity outweighed any optimism for mending fences, so I consented. We convened at a quaint cafe close to the shopping center. Dana showed up in much plainer attire than her typical flashy outfits, skipping the fancy jewels and high-end labels she usually sported. She appeared worn out, yet somehow more grounded. After we placed our coffee orders, she started, Georgia, I need to offer a heartfelt apology for those words I threw at you last week. They were harsh, rude, and way out of line. What prompted this shift in your thinking? I inquired bluntly. To be frank, that embarrassment at the diner hit hard. But it wasn't only that. Over these last several days, I've been forced to confront our money woes without your backing, and it hit me with something truly alarming. What exactly? That neither of us has a clue how to stick to a budget that matches our earnings. For years, we've acted like we're wealthy because you bridged the gap between what we make and what we blow. This marked the initial occasion I'd heard Dana deliver such a candid assessment of their fiscal mess. The day before yesterday, she went on, Ryan and I crunched the numbers and drafted an actual spending plan based solely on our paychecks, no external aid. Can you guess what came up? Lay it on me. We shell out nearly twice as much as we bring in, twice over Georgia, not just a bit extra, but fully double, and you've always footed the bill for the shortfall. So, what's your plan moving forward? We'll need to implement severe adjustments. Our current place runs us $200 monthly. Given our joint incomes, we ought to cap rent at $800 tops. Relocating is unavoidable. And Ryan's okay with this. He pushed back initially, but once the figures were laid out clearly, he couldn't argue. We'll also have to ditch subscriptions, cut back on perks, and overhaul how we hang out with friends. Dana took a moment to sip her brew. George, I have a question for you. Please level with me. When did our reliance on your wallet start to grate on you? The straightforwardness of her probe caught me off guard. I believe the bitterness built up slowly, but it really solidified when I saw that you didn't just anticipate my assistance. You assumed it as your due. And that happened when? When requests for cash turned into casual swipes from my accounts, when those extra cards became routine, when my nest egg morphed into your go-to safety net. Dana dipped her head in evident remorse. You're spot on. Somewhere along the way, we quit viewing you as a friend extending a hand and began treating you like a bottomless well. Precisely. Is there a path to mend our bond? Dana posed to me. I'll be straight with you. The connection we once shared is history. It rested on a lopsided setup where I provided and you consumed. To forge something fresh, we'd need entirely new pillars. Like what? Equal regard, self-sufficiency in your finances, and ties where my worth isn't tied to my bank balance. Dana fell quiet for an extended beat. Does that spell no more support from you ever? It signals that if a true crisis arises, once you've shown you can handle life on your own terms, we might discuss aid. But it'd be a one-off rescue, not an ongoing handout. How much time until we've earned that trust? This isn't a timed exam, Dana. It's a total mindset shift. Sustain a steady budget, keep spending in check, and amass your own safety cushion. That's how you'll prove genuine fiscal grown-up status. And those trips abroad, the fancy dinners out, you'll need to fund them through your efforts, just like the majority of folks. Dana seemed utterly daunted. Georgia, I'm not convinced we even grasp that kind of existence. Then it's high time you figure it out. You've got degrees, careers, and skills aplenty. All that's been missing is the drive to stand on your own. And should we stumble? Then you'll stumble as full-fledged grown-ups, gaining wisdom from the falls, but you'll own the outcomes, free from leaning on others to bail you out. We wrapped up our drinks amid a contemplative hush. As we rose to go, Dana turned to me. Georgia, I realize this doesn't erase the damage, but I hope you see that this week taught me a key lesson, which is, adulthood isn't merely reaching a certain age, it's shouldering the weight that comes with it. We've been faking maturity while you shouldered the load for real. It stood as the wisest insight she'd ever voiced. That evening, while I finalized my luggage for the voyage, a peculiar calm settled over me. I hadn't shed kin. I'd shed a poisonous pattern that damaged everyone involved. Should Ryan and Dana commit to transformation, they'd need to back it with deeds, not promises. Come Tuesday, a message pinged from Ryan. Mom, I secured a personal loan for the auto coverage. Plus, I spotted a more affordable spot to live, relocating next month. Thought you'd want the update. It was modest, yet meaningful, a tentative stride toward the autonomy they urgently required. That evening, I drifted off peacefully, aware that tomorrow marked the launch of my inaugural solo escapade in years. The sailing trip proved eye-opening. 5 days of waking up whenever I pleased, indulging in whatever food appealed to me, and pursuing hobbies simply because they sparked joy. Lucy proved to be an ideal partner for the journey, self-reliant, adventurous, and blissfully free from any family baggage. Aboard the vessel, I connected with fellow women around my age who'd faced comparable situations. At one evening meal, a lady called Elaine shared how her 3 grown kids had siphoned off her savings for retirement until she drew a firm line. Then there was Isabel, who'd learned her boy was racking up charges on her card for internet betting. The biggest revelation, Isabel noted, as we gazed at the sun dipping below the horizon from the ship's railing, was discovering I wasn't alone in this. I'd assumed it was an issue confined to my own household, yet it seems an entire cohort of parents struggles to set boundaries with their grown offspring. Coming back home that Sunday, I felt invigorated. 5 days free from any pleas for cash, without the nagging worry over finances, without the endless weight of fixing everyone else's messes. It was as if I'd rediscovered my true self from before I morphed into the family's go-to lender. A few voicemails awaited on my machine, but surprisingly, not a single one was a frantic request for funds. Ryan had rung twice, just checking that I'd made it back okay from the voyage. Dana had dropped a brief note. "I hope the cruise was wonderful. We'd be thrilled to get the rundown whenever you're free." Come Monday, Lucy swung by with brews and baked goods, eager for the full scoop on the adventure. As we lingered on my porch chatting, I spotted Ryan's vehicle pulling into the drive. This time, though, he didn't hop out right away and dash to the entrance. He lingered inside for a good while. When the bell finally chimed, his face carried a new vibe. He looked uneasy, yet somehow more grown up. "Mom," he started as I let him in, "I realize you're fresh off your getaway, but can we chat briefly?" I welcomed him inside. Lucy tactfully slipped away to her place. "Mom, I came to fill you in on our week," Ryan launched in. "Dana and I relocated to a more modest place. Our rents dropped by $400 each month. What are your thoughts on the shift? To be frank, it hit hard initially. The space is tighter. The area is not as upscale. But soon enough, a key insight dawned on me. And what was that? That I can rest easy now since we're covering all our bills from our own pockets. No more gnawing dread about scraping together next month's payments. It marked the initial occasion I'd heard Ryan discuss money worries from his own angle. It hadn't crossed my mind that he, too, might have felt the strain of an unsustainable way of life. We ditched those pricey gym plans, too, and opted for a no-frills option at 1/5 the cost, he went on. Plus, Dana picked up a weekend gig to boost our earnings. Dana's putting in extra hours. Yeah, and it was actually her suggestion. She mentioned wanting to play a bigger role in our budget rather than just handling funds from external sources. I was caught off guard learning Dana had stepped up like that. "Mom, I also need to offer a proper apology, not only for the incident 2 weeks back, but for all these years. I didn't grasp that I'd been using you like a cash machine rather than honoring you as my parent. What opened your eyes?" When we sat down to craft our initial actual budget, it hit me how clueless I was about real living expenses. Throughout my whole adulthood, I'd overspent because you'd always bridged the gap. Ryan halted and met my gaze squarely. "Mom, I need you to understand. These past days are the first in ages where I genuinely sense adulthood, handling my choices, tackling my issues, owning my outcomes. And how's that sitting with you? Scary, yet freeing." I had no clue about the load I'd been hauling until I shed it. Load. The burden of sensing at my core that I wasn't really on my own. The burden of recognizing my finances were built on pretense. The burden of admitting my habits relied on taking advantage of my mom's kindness. Those sentiments struck a chord with me. For so long, I'd figured I was the sole victim in our setup. But Ryan had been shouldering remorse and stress too. "Mom, after all this, I get that I can't request favors. But there's one thing on my mind. Go ahead. Do you believe we could build a regular bond? One where I'm your kid stopping by out of affection, not necessity?" That query touched me, as it showed he grasped the distinction. "Ryan, we can launch that connection right now, if you're game. I've long hoped for a son who drops in because he values me, not because I serve a purpose. So how about Dana and I join you for Sunday lunch? We'll handle the groceries, prepare the meal, and just hang out. I'd adore that." After Ryan departed, I found myself lounging in the living room, pondering all the shifts that had unfolded over the past 2 weeks. Sure, I'd stepped away from being the family's main breadwinner, yet I'd acquired something far more precious, my own dignity and the chance for an authentic bond with my son. That evening, I reached out to Mr. Coleman to discuss tweaking my will once more. Following my talk with Ryan, I was ready to explore a fresh strategy. Rather than locking in lifelong consequences, I opted for a will that honored proven maturity step by step. Miss Whitlock, the attorney noted, you're envisioning a graduated will tied to his actions. Spot on. Should Ryan prove true financial self-sufficiency for 2 full years in a row, he'd unlock a bigger share. Extend that success to 5 years, and he'd get an even greater slice. But slip back into past patterns, and we'd default to the initial setup. Smart setup, she agreed. It motivates enduring self-improvement. As I set the phone down, it hit me. After so long, I was finally shaping my legacy around optimism rather than dread. Optimism that Ryan had genuinely matured and evolved. Optimism for mending our connection. Optimism for spending my closing chapters with grace and honor. I stepped onto the patio and gazed upward at the night sky. Faintly, the trickle of the fountain echoed from afar, the one I'd added to the garden just last year. A modest indulgence I'd only permitted myself after decades of questioning if I merited such a personal splurge. These days, I understood clearly. I'd always warranted the same kindness toward myself that I'd extended to everyone else. It required 68 years to grasp that truth, but now it's etched in me, and it'll stay that way forever. If my tale resonated with you, consider showing support with a super thanks to fuel more narratives like this. Appreciate it ahead of time. And you, what steps would you take in a spot like hers? I'm eager for your insights, so share them below in the comments. I'm genuinely interested in your views. Also, tell me how you came across this story. Craving additional real-life tales? Hit like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Plenty more await. Warm embraces and catch you soon. Music.